Welcome to Evolve to Succeed, the podcast that brings together business owners, leaders and experts to talk about their business journeys and provide them with invaluable insights and explore the link between personal and business success. I am your host, Warren Munson, founder of Evolve. I have previously founded, grown and successfully exited 3 businesses in the business services and technology sectors. I have a passion for helping and advising businesses and seeing them succeed. We all know that leading and running a business comes with its own unique joys and challenges, and Evolve provides the advice, guidance and support to the business, you and your teams on that journey, be that if you're starting, growing or looking to exit or step away from your business. We do this through our Ignite, Thrive and Optimise programs and services, which include strategic advice, coaching and mentoring, leadership training, funded business support and so much more. If you want to learn more about Evolve, then please do go to evolveadvisory.co.uk or connect and message me on LinkedIn. For now though, let's just get on with the show. This week I'm talking to Lee Hill, MD and founder in 2016 of Insightful, a business that has evolved into 2 new businesses recently, Runway and The Study. Lee works with individuals and businesses who are not only striving for growth, but are customer obsessed. He believes that being customer obsessed will lead to faster growth whilst retaining larger profits, and who doesn't want that? Part of Lee's philosophy is that a business should move from being revenue focused to customer lifetime income focused. Not only will this reduce your cost per sale, it will drive more income from every customer by producing services and products that are of real value, and then marketing to them in a way that shows you're solving their real problems better than your competitor. As well as talking about his own entrepreneurial journey and how it was sparked by the yo-yoing of management he witnessed in his corporate life, Lee opens up on a number of topics, from his unique approach to starting Insightful, the collaborative culture in Dorset's digital sector, and how the business has evolved organically, to how being emotionally and caring about people has affected his leadership. He also gives some great advice on the best route to starting a business services company, as well as digital growth strategies and how to better understand your audience and customer journey. I really hope you enjoy the conversation. Welcome, Lee, to the Evolve to Succeed podcast.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to our conversation, hearing a bit about your own kind of business journey as a co-founder, but also to talk to you about the work that you do now at Runway and The Study in terms of helping businesses develop and grow their businesses. So we should probably start a little bit, Lee, with your journey. So As I understand it, you co-founded a business called Insightful in 2016.
That's right, yeah.
How did that journey come about? What made you decide it was time to go alone?
So I was in the corporate environment working in financial services and kept on seeing the yo-yo of management.
Okay.
You know, one minute we were all running left and then the next minute we were running right.
Yeah.
And it just becomes a bit disheartening after a while, especially if you know you're doing good things, you're adding value. So when missions change and I guess the core values and where the new direction of travel changes, sometimes you think, actually, I need to jump ship now because my values and what I think is the right approach or where we should be going is not aligned. So I started to think about a year in advance as to what I might do. I wanted to stay in the area, very aware that the area is filled with amazing digital agencies and digital talent. So we didn't want to replicate the typical model. Spoke to lots of great people, you know, the likes of Ali Carmichael and lots of other MDs in the area, just getting advice and guidance and things like that, and really appreciative of the time that was given to me back then. Learned about what they wouldn't do now, what to do, and tried to just figure out a position in the market, something new that would actually add value again, and also leaning on my own skills. And one of the things that I'd always been brought in for businesses is to help them understand the true value or the revenue potential of a website.
Okay.
So as opposed to just building one that looks pretty,
instead of just being a branded kind of...
we were moving into those realms of people obviously wanting to generate decent income from them. And behind that was the whole science, and I'd learned about that and learned how to forecast what's possible. So I set up Insightful, and initially we went out with one product, and it was a web audit.
Okay.
Which essentially, on one hand, looked at how the website could be improved, but also showed the revenue uplift if there was some investment made into it as well.
Okay. So really just it's what's really interesting so far in that short piece of conversation is that the digital, we're talking about Bournemouth, Christchurch, Dorset, there is a huge digital community, isn't it? But it's really interesting to see how supportive it would appear to have been to a possible new entrant and competitor. And it is a really collaborative environment. Yeah,
and I think it still is. It's really weird. I mean, Matt Desmere does a good job of getting us all together every Christmas as well. Still, I think there's probably another 80, MD CEOs getting together this Christmas. Yeah, it's a really good group. I don't think people feel like they're in direct competition necessarily, and if we are, it's up to the best team to win the work. But there's so many niches and variables in digital and marketing and things. There's plenty of space for everyone to play.
And you brought others in, didn't you? You didn't sort of decide you're going to found something and be the sort of 100% shareholder.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that, because I think it's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I learned from speaking to lots of MDs about how lonely the journey can be when you're by yourself. Plus, I wanted to enjoy the journey. I wanted to build something with some other people, something that we could look back at collectively and be very proud of. And that was the ethos around it. When it came about that it ended up with Chris and George joining, the shares were split equally, because again it wasn't about the equity of the money, it was just about being going on a journey with some guys that I trusted, have faith in, and I knew that we could build something special together. So that was the driver behind it, I guess.
But that is it's a great ethos to have, but it is a slightly different ethos. But perhaps a lot of people, when they start to set out on the business journey, particularly if they're the one driving it, usually it's kind of like, let's keep as much of this for me as I can. Yeah. But there was not that sense in you. No,
because I think I think I was old enough at that point, even then, to know some of my weaknesses. I'm aware of even more weaknesses now.
I think we all learn those in a way, don't
we? Especially since COVID, it's been a really, really challenging time for everyone. I think for different reasons, not just in business. But yeah, you learn about yourself. But even back then, I was aware of my weaknesses, and working with Chris and George, they brought something to the business that I just didn't have, and I knew that with their abilities and the three of us, we could actually grow something stronger, better, quicker, that would actually end up being worth more. So it was more about that kind of thinking of a collaborative approach to actually achieve even more.
Yeah. And you've recently sort of rebranded Insightful, and was discuss the reasons behind that into two new brands, The Study and in particular Runway. So what's that journey been like in the last 7 years to get to this point today, Lee?
I think like any business, you start off with your core services, and sometimes you get the allure of, oh, can you just do this for us? And you're like, yeah, we can actually. Not to say that we still didn't. There were certain things that we would always stay away from, but there were certain things that we took on. But I think back to a book that I read which had the hedgehog concept in it.
Okay.
And this was about it was good to great. Okay. The academic study of what made the difference between a good business and great business. And there was 3 core principles in there, and there's one that, whatever service you're providing, you should try and be the best you can at it, be that in the region, the country, or globally, however you want to determine it. The business model needs to stack up, but equally you need to be really passionate about it.
Yeah. And
I think sometimes we get lured into offering services for the cash.
Yeah.
We can do them, but we're not uber passionate about them. Yeah. So I think Insightful's kind of shaped and moved and transformed over the years. And I think it's taken us this long to really identify what we're amazing at, what we're really passionate about, and what can we do where we've got a very strong business model.
It's really good. It's really interesting. And in that I think it's true, isn't it? Like you say, you started Insightful and you had, a sort of web audit on speed type thing was the concept, and that was your only product, and that was what you did. But then off the back of that, opportunities come, and it's particularly in those early days of a business, that startup phase. I think it's really hard to have the discipline to say no.
Yeah.
And it is only when you get maybe 2-3 years down the line and you look back.
Yeah.
And I often talk about, I think to make a startup successful, you've got to have focus, passion, and belief.
Yeah.
And then clearly we're sort of talking about the focus piece about that, but you've also already talked about passion.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can be 3-4 years into a business, can't you? And you've lost some of your focus. You're definitely not passionate about it because you've been beaten up a few times, and then that belief in what you're doing starts to dissipate, and that can be quite dangerous, can't it?
Yeah, it can be, and I think the main thing that I've probably learned over the last 7 years, probably all the big mistakes of how not to run a business. I think everything from cost control, cash flow management, hiring and firing, I've probably made all the mistakes you can, and I've definitely learned from them. So I'm feeling a lot more positive about the way that we're going forward now. The rebrand itself was very much needed. It's something that we've talked about loosely for the last probably 2.5 years, about needing to really address our proposition. Insightful UX, it gives a onus to user experience, and we offer so much more than that now. We're much more strategic. We're much about the customer, much more about customer research and helping clients become customer obsessed. We're working in new sectors such as the public sector now, as well as the private. There was very much a need to split out the services into 2 core areas. One predominantly helping brands with growth, but again helping them first understand their customer to a deeper level so they could form the right plans. And then the other one that was a pure play research brand that helps public sector and private sector organisations, again, just to understand their audiences to a much more deeper level.
And that's the distinction between Runway and The Study,
is it? It is, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And when you look at that journey over that 7 years, do you pleased you've been on the journey, or do you now wish perhaps you'd have stayed in that kind of more corporate employed environment?
No, I wouldn't change it. It's been the most enjoyable, fun thing I've done, but also the most challenging times 10. Dreaming about cash flow and money and stuff and spreadsheets, But again, I think you need to go through those learnings of the tough times, of difficult periods, to really focus you and make you understand that you don't want to go through that pain again, and therefore how can we kind of put better practices in place and bring in the right people around you to support you on managing the business. And I do want to point out, I think there's a very clear distinction as well, is you can be amazing at what you do in terms of the service you provide, but if the business isn't run well, you're not going to survive.
No.
And I think those are the kind of lines or lessons that we've learned the hard way, is that you need to make sure that the fundamentals of running the business are right in order to achieve the growth that you really want.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's not just in the digital sector. I think all business services type startups, businesses, products the same, but probably there's a slightly different nuance with products, isn't there? But is that usually the person starting the business does it because they've got expertise, and they think they can sell the expertise. So they kind of leave, as you did, as I did. You leave your kind of corporate world, you leave a safety net, and off you go. But actually, you've got to have, fundamentally, that's not enough, is that you do need a business model, and how are you going to generate cash?
And I think that's the thing. You go into the world and you might be great at what you can do, but you've never run a business before, so you're learning as you go. And I think one of my big downfalls, if I'm very honest, is I'm quite emotional. People probably won't agree with it, but I actually care about people, and especially hiring and firing. That's been one of my biggest hurdles to deal with, is how bringing in the right people first of all, but then if they're not quite right for the business, doesn't mean they're not amazing people, they're just not right for the business, of just letting them go early enough at times, which again has detriment to a business.
Definitely.
So, but all those lessons we've learned from. But the service, I think this is a thing that I'm really proud of. If you look at where we were 7 years ago in terms of our actual service and the team we've got on board now, there is no comparison. You know, this is without a doubt the best team that I've worked with in my career, and I'm really proud of that we've managed to bring together some very clever, passionate people that genuinely want and are self-motivated to go out there and just do the best they can for a client. And I love that.
Yeah.
It's great.
That's good. Your eyes and your face comes alive, you know. So your listeners, you can't see it, but, you know, Lee's, you know, really clearly very passionate and expressive about that side of the business. So before we start to sort of just move on, because I do want to tap into your expertise for the benefit of our listeners around, you know, digital growth and all of those kind of things. But just, you know, I think it's been a really interesting conversation around startup, really.
Yeah.
And if I was sat here now in front of you and I'd come to you as one of the people I was going to take some counsel from starting my own business services business, what would be some words of advice? We've got 3 tips that you've given.
Yeah, I think I did a post on this about a month ago on LinkedIn. A lot of them are cliched, and annoyingly I'd heard them all but never listened to any of them. So, you know, the one I just mentioned, hire slow, fire fast. Yeah. You know, I think that's a core one. I think there's also an economy of scale that you get with employees as well. I think if you can go out and you can afford to pay a bit more for somebody that's got the expertise, especially when you're small, you often find that these people are self-motivated as well. So if you can bring those people kind of in earlier as opposed to bringing in junior people for a small business, I think it's absolutely ideal. And those people will themselves, with that expertise, bring along their own ideas. So they will help you grow it themselves. You've got to have your ears open, haven't you? You've got, and we've seen that. You know, we've got a fantastic head of research, Adam. He's not yet 30, and he honestly he runs rings around us. You know, in terms of his expertise, his knowledge. You know, he dictates how that area, that department is run, what we need to do, and he's just a joy to work with because you don't need to motivate him. He's just doing his thing and loving it because he's passionate about his subject. Yeah. So I think the staff one is very key for me. The other thing as well is we've just brought in an FD. Okay. So I think for me, separating out kind of, because I head up things like new business, separating out sales and financial management for me, and having somebody that's kind of independent, impartial, that can pull us up on the numbers and run through the numbers and explain things and say, this is where we're at, these are the options, this is what we can do from day one. You know, the one we've got is it's not a full-time resource, it's not even part-time, but she's there and she's amazing. Yeah. And I can call her anytime. Support, isn't it? And we know where we're at. You know, FD on demand. Exactly. As a service. And it's just separated out. And I think for my mental piece as well, it's even now it's starting to really help of just having that function. It comes back to playing to strengths. Completely. And covering your weaknesses. Yeah, completely. Completely, yeah. Definitely. Some good hints and tips there. So if we move on to talk about digital growth and digital growth strategies. I mean, typically a business is still trying and attempting to grow their businesses using web, or are businesses now switching more to sort of social media? You know, because as a business owner myself, you're a little bit confused. Where should I be putting my time and efforts? Should it be the old school, get out there, build a network, you know, build that black book? Should it be on socials, or should we be spending more and developing more on our website? Yeah, well, it's interesting because it really leads into what Runway is about. So, you know, our proposition is that we're about taking market followers to become market leaders. Okay. And we've been working on a program and we've implemented the program with a number of clients over the last few years, working in different areas to really kind of see how we could bring a program together, which we have now via Runway, and there's different strands to it. But fundamentally, for us, the first exercise starts with actually just looking at your current customer data and really trying to understand the most profitable pockets of audience group, and then actually going out and speaking to those individually. Right. So let's say we identify 3 core audience groups, and we give them a name or whatever. We would then go and interview them, hour-long, in-depth interviews, talking to them specifically about the research and buying process they would go through to buy the product.
Yeah.
Talk about the quality of service provision, or everything really around that area. And what you find from doing that is actually you've got different pockets of audiences that actually want to be engaged in different ways.
Okay.
We were working with a big financial services brand. I think it was probably about a year ago, and they were looking at some different pockets of audiences, and some consultant had come in without any research to back it up initially, and had said you need to spend big on digital for all of these 5 audiences.
Okay.
And they were advised to do some research with ourselves first to understand these audiences in more depth. And we went out and engaged with these audiences, and we found that actually the biggest audience they were going to target, the last thing they wanted to be engaged with was digital services.
Right.
So, this brand would have gone out and spent a significant amount of money on marketing, building up a marketing team, material, deploying it, the time to see it not work, and it wouldn't have worked. The audience were very clear that they were just turned off to digital, but they told us what would engage them and how to be engaged.
Okay.
And they deployed that instead, and that's working really well for them.
It's really interesting, isn't it? So I suppose it's like anything, it's just start with knowing your customer.
Know your customer, go to the source. And it was interesting reading some of the questions that you developed for the chat today. That it talked a lot about competition, and on some of our material already, there's a great Amazon quote from Jeff, and Jeff, as if I know him, Jeff as if you know him personally. And it says, whilst our competition are keeping their eyes on us, we're keeping an eye on their customers.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily, for me, it's great to have competitor insights, and we help clients with that, and especially when we're benchmarking things like websites, and we've got a whole process around that we can go into in detail in a minute, if you like. But it's really digging into understanding those different audience segments. And I think this is important as well, because I think a lot of the time a brand will come out with very one specific message for everyone, and I think you need to understand the commonality of what's important to all of those audiences. But you can actually, with the use of digital, go out and target audiences very specifically now on specific messages, on things that are important to them, or specific problems that you can solve for that group. And they can be all different, and I think that's where you leverage being able to maximise profit.
Okay, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think that particularly in this, maybe business owners that are less marketing and digital savvy, we probably are at fault of putting out one set of messaging and hoping it appeals to all.
Yeah, completely. And you don't need to be like that, with the use of email, as you said, even social, you can target it to certain demographics and certain types of people. We can get a lot more granular, but we're not. We're almost awash with so much data that we don't know what to do. We're snowblind. And we see it going into, very sizable businesses that the data's just not in a decent state. Yeah. And we're retrospectively having to go back and help them understand things like what sectors some of their data is in, and segments and things, to help them then understand which audiences are their most profitable, which ones they should be going after.
So once we got to the point where we perhaps do understand our audiences better and maybe what appeals to them, how do you go about creating the collateral that's going to appeal to them?
So, should we try and take an example?
Yeah, that'd be great. Should
we take a website, for example? So, what we would typically let's take a website. So, what we would typically do before we actually did any audience research, we'd actually conduct a web audit first. And again, we felt that most web audits are very subjective. So, what will happen is somebody within the agency you've appointed will be asked to review the website and provide some feedback. But as you can appreciate, it's very subjective. You know, to give it to, you know, Steve versus, you know, Sarah next to her, you know, the opinions are going to be very different. And we didn't think that was necessarily the right approach to take. So we started to troll around the marketplace and around just to see what else was out there in terms of a framework that would pull away the subjectivity from that process. And we found a great framework called the heuristic evaluation. Now, this might blow your mind, but this is an academically proven study, and it's identified 140 best practices to apply to your website to make it easier to use.
Okay.
And they cover things from navigation, content placement, social proofing, trust and persuasion, or a whole...
all the things we probably have heard of.
Yeah. So 6 key areas. And what we actually do we use that to see how many of the clients already got in play, so we know what else they need to do. But what we do is we also apply that over the 3 of the most competitive competitors. And the idea of that is we might find that competitor A, for example, has a better scoring for navigation. So then we look at the way that they've approached their navigation to see what lessons we can learn. So that's the bit where we do want to learn from the competition of, okay, what are they up to? Can we do it better? But you've still got to sense check it against the customer, because the competitor might have gone ahead and done something, but might not be the right thing.
Be what your customer base and your target market and audience wants.
So we do that. And you know, our decks are a mammoth and provide lots of analysis and screenshots really of treatments and ways to implement these things. Also includes things like revenue, income potential, because I think this is the biggest thing for websites as well, and really why I wanted to focus on it was that what we see is globally websites only convert 1 to 3%.
It is a really low traction rate.
So we spend all this effort and time driving traffic to a website, and then hardly anybody converts. So, you know, our ethos has been, well, if you've got a website that converts at 1%, and let's say you're getting 20 inquiries, if you can get that just to 2%, you've got 40 inquiries. It's got to be one of the easiest ways to maximise growth. And it's one of the things that I've always done when going into a new business was work on the website first and get the conversion up. Because equally, every pound you're pumping into it, your cost per sale reduces. So if you're spending £100 per sale, it costs you £100 to generate a customer via PPC, for example, and your conversion's at 1%. If you get to 2%, all of a sudden your cost per sale is only £50. And then you've got that extra £50 to drive even more sales. So
sounds easier said than done, hey?
Yeah, but if there is a proven process to this
strategy, there is academic research. It's
testing and iterating, and you know, after that we would do something like user testing again, where we get real customers in front of the client's website and the competitors to find out what's stopping them from converting and buying. Is it messaging? Is it navigation? Is there not enough social proof and confidence in the brand? What is it that's stopping people buying? As soon as you can identify those barriers, you can start to remove them. And we've had huge success with that, you know, in terms of conversions. That's what I love about it. Going out and just speaking to the people and having that, they're not light bulb moments, but just grabbing those insights that nobody in the room could ever kind of identify, because you're not in that mindset of the user, the customer, as they're going through that buying process, which is very complex, as we know.
Start putting the customer first, kind of principled approach. So we've kind of done the web audit, we've kind of understood that a bit more, we've understood our audiences, we've started to develop, you know, and change the way we do things. At what point in your kind of journey with a customer with Runway would you then start to ramp that up with some campaigns? And what sort of campaign strategies are you seeing working in the current kind of environment?
So again, we spent a lot of time on this stuff. Again, really looking at what's not really being catered for in the market, and how we could be different. So in my mind, there is so many amazing agencies that drive traffic into a website. And the main lever for most businesses that are digitally focused in terms of wanting online inquiries or online sales is just driving more traffic into the website. That is the only lever they have, but they don't, in my mind. So we've mentioned web conversion, which we just talked about. Also within that, you've got upsell and cross-sell.
Okay.
So I think, again, a lot of businesses are focused purely on retention, on acquisition, where we think, actually, if you can speak to your customers and identify what more you could be selling to them that's not of value, without spamming them to death like we all see, because I think that's one of the things that's been bad for digital, is that we've got this data, we don't understand it, yet we just bombard people and just create loads of noise, which confuses people even more. But what about if you engage with those customers that have bought for you for some reason, you find out why they've bought from you, and you engage in a conversation with them to say, actually, if we wanted to provide more services or product to you, what would be of value to you? And you find that out, and then you can upsell and cross-sell more easily as well. Yeah. So you've got that, and beyond that, the whole retention piece. So for us, it's all about activating these additional levers, of upsell, cross-sell. Average order value is another one as well, within the website and email, and retention. You start to go to a model where you're trying to look at how you increase lifetime income as opposed to just revenue. Yeah. And for us, it's if you've got that great value exchange where you're providing the right products and services and creating that, it's a nicer way to create loyalty, and it's a nice and easier way to grow the business because you've got a nice firm retention base, and it's not just purely acquisition.
Yeah, you're not just churning.
You're just churning and you're filling up the hopper constantly, which we all know. And I've sat in businesses there when you're doing that, and it's really hard work. Yeah. You can just make it so much easier for yourself. Yeah. In my mind. Yeah. So we're approaching things differently with this model. So when we engage with a brand and we help them understand their customers, we call it experimentation, and we predominantly work helping them with web experimentation, email experimentation, whilst we also look at the wider customer journey and how we can help that, aligning kind of pre-sale, post-sale, marketing, all of that area, and operations and delivery. So we're trying to upscale the whole journey.
And that customer journey piece is really interesting, isn't it? And I think it's one of the, if we talk about going from startup to scale, I think it's the businesses that are able to scale do start to understand their customer journey.
Completely. Yeah.
But typically in a business, and there probably isn't a typical answer, but I'm going to ask you the question anyway, Lee.
Yeah.
Typically, when you go in and you start to do that kind of investigation around what the customer journey is, how many businesses do you think really do understand their customer journey, and what do you think some of the common errors, mistakes, or areas for improvement are?
I think for me, it's more about really embracing the value of a customer as not just being another sale. About them, again, really taking that time to understand them, and therefore trying to understand how they can communicate better with them, whilst also kind of creating a customer feedback loop so they can gather those insights and just continually improve. What I love seeing is more that kind of light bulb moment with clients where they start to see the value of the work we do, of like, I get it now. I get why it's so important to go out and find these insights. When you start feeding those nuggets of insights back to a client, that everyone was like, oh, I didn't know that. But actually, that makes perfect sense. How did we not know that intuitively? And it's like, oh, we can do something with that. Yeah. We've done some work for the Dorset Chamber recently. Okay. So we did some surveys and we did some focus groups, and I ran a session with the team, I think it was a couple of weeks ago now, at the Foundry. And again, what was really amazing for me about that is that it identified some very clear opportunities in terms of service provision that are not being met at the moment.
Okay.
And it's only by going out and speaking to people that you can identify these things. So, the being customer obsessed not only creates ability to make marketing easier, to acquire customers more easily, to retain them, it creates opportunity that you didn't know was there. Yeah. And I love that. I think it's great.
That's the excitement in it.
Yeah.
It's definitely the excitement. And have you got any really sort of maybe a case study that you could just put this all, we're having a great conversation, and as we start to draw our conversation towards a close, it'd be great to hear You got a particular case study that you can name the client name and you can that you're proud about?
I can talk around some sectors and things if it helps, or some areas.
Because it's quite useful to see that kind of practical side of it then.
So one client we're working with they're trying to... So just to put this in context, Runway is about working with brands that do want to lead a market in some way. Yeah. You know, they don't want to just follow it. They want to set the standard, be that providing the best experience or whatever. So there's one client that we're working with in the business energy market at the minute, and they're wanting to transform the currently awful experience that businesses have to go through. And these guys are really putting in the money to really become customer obsessed and understand every touch point and how they can alleviate the pains that people go through during that process. And I completely take my hats off to them. And when you've got a remit like that of knowing that you're going to fundamentally change a marketplace, you know, it's fantastic. And we've got a grouping of clients like that at the minute that are invested in, believe in the power of being customer obsessed, built great teams around it, and bring in our expertise to really help take them to the next level with that. There are plenty of brands out there still looking to kind of grow and really take advantage of marketplaces where the service provision is very poor.
But by being customer obsessed, you can set yourself out from the crowd.
So, for example, with the business energy market, we were able to identify some routes to market again, which marketing channels we needed to use for some very specific segments that weren't digitally kind of orientated. It was like, okay, well, we're a digital business and they don't want to be digital. How can we get about that? Yeah. And we found some ways still within the digital realm that will work. And what I love about this brand as well is they're really quick to activate stuff. I mean, one of the things we're great at is we're absolutely bang on in ensuring we're speaking to the right people. I mean, we've had teams of people infiltrate things like young farmers events and things like that to get in front of the right people, because in my opinion, a lot of research companies don't go to those lengths to really get in front of the person and have those in-depth hour-long, half-an-hour interviews that you really need to understand an audience. So we're great at that. So George and the team spent a lot of time speaking to micro business owners and feeding the insights into the team as we were going. So research can be really fast now as well. And as we were doing that, the team internally for the client, they were developing brands on the fly, campaigns on the fly, and implementing them and testing them.
Wow.
So it can be really quick.
It can, I suppose that's the speed of tech, isn't it? And that ability. And I suppose we all maybe think of marketing and that kind of customer research as being quite a slow process.
We've got another client, software, where they had a feeling that the market leader probably has about 50% market share, and they've just been heavily invested in because they've got a feeling that they themselves can become market leader. But what they've rightfully done is they've asked us to go out and actually speak to the customers of their competitor to identify the likelihood of switching. Okay. What the drivers are. Yeah. And before they obviously invest large sums again to try and take on
don't do it blindly, do it with knowledge.
Exactly. And I think that's what's great about a lot of what we do anyway, is we de-risk a lot of things, a lot of thinking, because we get certainty and understanding of an audience to help make the right strategic business decision. But in this instance, the research is coming out is that the leading market player, the audience isn't loyal. If the right proposition was presented in the right way, they would definitely look at and happily jump ship.
Interesting.
So again,
it gives you the confidence then for that client to put on the gas and off they go.
Exactly. So potentially we could have a conversation with them of using that research to then help develop content and messaging, and then email and web experimentation to help that, whilst they have other partners to drive traffic into the website.
Brilliant. Yeah. And we're obviously sat here in 2023. It's kind of been a weird year in many ways, isn't it? But been a weird year in terms of the economy. And one of the things that is often seen is that when things start to get tough and slow down, people sort of de-invest from their digital marketing,
Yeah.
creative agency spend.
Yeah.
Are you seeing that in the market, or do you think people now really believe that they do really need to invest in their digital and therefore persevering with their spend?
It's a hard one, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think I think any finance person, and I think there's lots of them out there who have been holding on to cash and keeping it back, and it's their right to do what they think is best for the business. But equally, I've got into businesses at a time of I remember 2009. I was brought into a financial services brand where everybody else in the market was pulling back spend. We invested and we gained an amazing amount of market share from them. So I think it needs to be an ongoing investment, probably more than anything now. I think the world has changed so much. I think audiences have therefore changed a lot in the way that they want to buy, the way they want to live, the brands that they want to invest in. So I think there needs to be a ring-fenced amount of money to stay in tune with your customer, so that you can ensure that when you are investing those marketing budgets, they're being spent in the right way.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, I suppose it's that research, that spend, that focus, and I suppose it's like anything in life, isn't it? But I think marketing and sales is being consistent, isn't it?
Well, I think
tap on, tap off isn't probably the way to do it.
I'm a marketing purist, and I fundamentally believe that most people don't understand really what marketing is. Because for me, without audience research, it's not marketing.
Yeah.
For me, it's just sales.
Yeah.
You're assuming the right fit for a product or service, and you're going out and pushing it on somebody, as opposed to understanding the real needs and wants of the audience via research to then fulfill that need. Yeah. And I think we therefore make it harder for ourselves, where we've got... I could probably write down at least 25 instances where we've had clients that were going to go do one thing and the research has told them to do another, and it saved them a whole chunk of cash.
Yeah, it's interesting. Isn't there? That distinction between sales and marketing.
Yeah.
Again, which I suppose in the SME world, in that kind of entrepreneurial world, we don't always understand because it's not where we've come from, is it? So you're right. We think we know what the customer wants, and we just put the spend in rather than researching it first.
Completely, but what's great about, as you rightfully mentioned technology, the technology available, the methodologies available, the level of insights that you can get very quickly now are just unbelievable. I mean, we can run surveys and get results back within like a week. Yeah. There's panels of audiences out there that we can pay to use and add on additional questions, and the insights, again, they're just gold, and they don't it doesn't cost much to run these services, especially consumer research. So the knowledge is out there. We just need to be spending a little bit more money from our marketing budget, say 10% or whatever, towards the research bit, or upskilling our internal teams to understand how to take research. And I think it's a recipe for success.
Lee, as we round up our conversation, always end with one specific question, and that is, what's your own personal definition of success, having been on the journey you've been on? I think that changes, doesn't it, over the years? It does.
I think probably like a lot of business owners, we've come through a rough period just due to the market, not necessarily because of what we do. And I think there's lots of businesses closing even now. I think, I saw the stats that there's never been as many businesses closed this year as in, I think the last time was 2009. Yeah. So we're going through a really tough market, and I feel sorry for a lot of those businesses because, again, it's not a reflection of them or the service they provide. The market's just not there, the demand. So for me, the rebrand that we've gone through, bringing more stability, for me, I can kind of see the shoots now of really getting to enjoy the work again. Yeah. And I think that's what's really important to me now, is just getting to a place where I'm really, really enjoying the work, and I'm not having to worry about the business side of of money and things like that. So that separation that we talked about is going to be helpful. So I'm looking forward to spending more time on client work and new business, and just getting out there and seeing how we can genuinely help solve the problems of our own customers.
Brilliant, fantastic. And if people want to learn more about you and more about Runway and The Study, where can they go? How can they make contact?
Yeah, they can have a look at our website, which is Runway Consulting. And yeah, I'm more than happy to have a coffee, a chat with anyone that just wants bits of guidance and advice on how to become customer obsessed, or how to start with running experiments across the website or email or whatever. Always happy to help.
Brilliant. Lee, really enjoyed our conversation, and thank you for the insights that you've given around, that particularly being customer obsessed. I think there's a real strong theme and message that's come out of this conversation, which I'm going to personally reflect on. So thank you, Lee.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Evolve to Succeed podcast. My hope with every episode is that you've learned something new or heard something that challenged your way of thinking and further motivated you on your path towards becoming a more knowledgeable, informed and inspired individual and business leader. And don't forget, if you'd like to learn more about Evolve and the services we offer and how we can help you and your business confidently start, grow and exit, then please go to evolveadvisory.co.uk. Please also help and support this podcast by subscribing, liking and giving us a positive review on your favourite listening platform. Thanks for listening and see you next week.